Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Cavanaugh's Corner. Today on the channel I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. This is not a review I was planning on making, but after watching this movie this past weekend, I kind of had to review this film. This is a very interesting one. It's a movie that came out 36 years ago. And I was not around yet when this movie came out, but I always enjoyed it in a guilty pleasure type sense. Sylvester Stallone released his director's cut of Rocky IV, which is now known as Rocky vs. Drago Ultimate Director's Cut. And the reason why I originally wasn't going to review this is that it is a digital-only release as of right now. This movie came out on all the different digital platforms. I ended up purchasing it on iTunes, and it was $15, and it was in 4K with Dolby Vision and 5.1 surround sound. And I'm going to talk about the video and picture quality a little bit later. But really, I was really curious to see this because I read that, there's over 40 minutes of new footage, and the movie was more or less completely re-edited. And I was very surprised about this because most of the time, if you've seen any sort of director's cut over the last 20 years or so, most of the time there are just minor changes here and there, and they add a scene or they change a scene here and there, but that's pretty much it. And, usually these director's cuts or extended cuts usually don't really change the framework of the film. But in this case of this new director's cut of Rocky IV, Sylvester Stallone has really gone the extra mile here and has completely changed pretty much almost everything in the film. Most of the movie is completely re-edited. The opening of the film is completely different. There are a few extra added scenes. There are scenes taken out. There are different takes of certain scenes. There are different camera angles. The fight scenes are completely re-edited. It is a very, very extensive recutting of the movie. So nothing is really changed in terms of the story. There is an interesting little thing that happens near the beginning of the film. A little plot point that was not present in the original version of Rocky IV, which I'm not going to spoil for you here. But it kind of changes the dynamic of Apollo's fight with Drago, and kind of adds to the overall drama of the film. And I think it was very interesting. But pretty much, as I mentioned, this new cut of Rocky IV is a completely different beast. I think the number one thing I have to say about this film, this new cut of this film, I should say, is that it is much more now in line with the other Rocky films. The original kind of very, very fast-paced, silly kind of tone is not really there anymore. Stallone has completely cut out the scenes with Paulie and his robot, which is definitely been a huge point of contention over the years. Those scenes are gone. The opening is completely different, and it really puts a more of an emphasis on the friendship and relationship of Rocky and Apollo Creed, which I think is extremely important for this film, especially since what happens in the film. I think the movie now will hold up better as time goes on. I think the movie is a little bit more dramatic in terms of its pacing now. It does not feel like a flash-in-the-pan movie anymore, which I think the original Rocky IV really had, where it was all glitz and pizzazz and all that. And it's still there in this cut, but it definitely changes the tone of the film, with these new scenes, the re-editing of certain scenes, the extension of some scenes. Talia Shire gets a few extra moments in this, and I think it really adds to her part as Adrian in this film, whereas in the original cut of Rocky IV, she's not really an extremely important character. In this, she does get a chance to shine a lot more in this, and gets to be Rocky's voice of reason, and I really like that. I thought that was a really interesting thing that they did with her in this new cut. Apollo's fight with Drago is definitely a whole different ball game now, and there actually is my favorite moment in the entire film, honestly, is there is an added moment now where Stallone rushes into the ring after, I think it's the first round of the fight between Apollo and Drago, and there's a moment where he kind of he gives a look to Drago, and Drago looks back, and you can tell there's an antagonism there. There's something happening there, and I literally just kind of went, whoa, okay, like, oh, and it adds a lot to the dramatic tension. Even the training scenes, the montages in the film, which there are a few of them, the montages have been completely recut. The training montage, near the end of the film, is a lot more impactful now. I felt it to be much more in line with the previous Rocky films. Although the music has not changed, they kept the same Hearts on Fire song, and I love that song. It's such a great song to get you pumped up. But now they've added a little bit more to the training, and I think it makes it a lot more investing, I think is the word. You really get invested in it more than before, where it just kind of felt like they were going through the paces. Now you really get an idea that Rocky is trying to train himself in a way where he can really be Drago's match, where Drago's just kind of doing the indoor fancy thing. He's doing the butch kind of nature workout, and it's more matched up now than it was before. And they also put a lot more emphasis on Drago's steroid use, which is kind of funny in retrospect, but they put a lot more emphasis, a few more like very meaningful shots of that needle going into Drago's arm. And I think that was a good touch, showing, he's got the real strength and Drago's kind of manufactured, which I really like. But there are a lot of changes, more than I could ever go over here. But I think really Stallone has done something really special here, where he not only has made a really impactful director's cut, but he's made a movie that before was okay and kind of silly into a movie that can kind of be taken a little bit more seriously now. I mean, it's still Rocky IV, but it's a much more impactful and meaningful Rocky IV than we had before, which I think is fantastic. And I can definitely see myself revisiting this version of Rocky IV now way more often than the original cut, which I'm very surprised to say, because, like I said, Rocky IV is kind of a guilty pleasure of mine, and I do enjoy it. I always did, but now I can really watch this, and it seems to fall way more in line, especially with Rocky III, II, and I. The other thing I wanted to mention here is, of course, the movie has been completely remastered in 4K, and I watched it through iTunes, and that one had Dolby Vision. And I have to say, this movie looked absolutely stunning. The color palette on this movie is so much more vibrant than it was before. Skin tones are much more natural than they were before compared to the old Rocky IV Blu-ray. I mean, really everything about it. The black levels, even though there aren't many extremely dark scenes in this film, especially that scene where Rocky is driving at night, they're pretty solid. I mean, they're pretty solid. You can really tell that they went all out on making sure the picture for these old, cut scenes or different camera angles matched the rest of the film. And the quality pretty much throughout is dead on. The movie, like I said, looked fantastic. There is an effect that they used at the beginning of the film that I did not think looked very good. And they basically superimposed some video of Drago's press conference when he comes to the States at the very beginning of the film. And they used like a still shot of this TV that's out by Apollo Creed's pool, and he's kind of watching this press conference. And yet again, this is one of the many scenes that is very much extended now versus what it was before. But that's really the one shot in the movie where I was like, oh, that kind of doesn't look so hot, but yeah, it's all right. You know, I'm willing to forgive it because it did actually add a little more context to the story. So that was one thing that I was kind of not so crazy about. But again, they used what they had, and what they had was honestly some pretty good stuff. So I was very glad to see that the movie looked great throughout, and there was never any scenes where I was like, oh yeah, the quality on that's really low. They pretty much were all across the board the same level of quality, which is rare for a director's cut where the footage has kind of been MIA for over 30 years. It's really amazing that they were able to do that. So hats off to the colorists and the guys that worked on the restoration of this film. And I'm hoping we get a director's cut of Rocky V, because that movie sucks. And I like certain very little bits and pieces of it, but I'm really hoping we get a re-edit of that at some point, because I think that movie is the one that could really, really use it. But as for this one, I really do recommend Rocky IV, this new director's cut of Rocky versus Drago. I really recommend it, especially to the fans that love the series. It's not only is the best the movie has ever looked, but I think this version is really going to be the de facto version of the film from here on out. I really loved it, and like I said, you can get it on Amazon, iTunes, pretty much anywhere. But again, it is a great film, and I do advise you to watch it, because I thought Stallone did an absolutely fantastic job with this new cut of the film. If you enjoyed it before, I think you're really going to love it now. Just be ready for a little bit of a different experience this time around. Well, that's all for today for Cavanaugh's Corner. Just want to say thank you so much for coming back to the channel here. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel below so I can keep bringing you reviews like this. Until next time, please stay safe and take it easy.